Welcome to meeting number 25 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people.
Pursuant to the order of reference of Tuesday, the 12th, 2022, the committee is meeting on the study of Bill C-11, an act to amend the Broadcasting Act and to make related and consequential amendments to other acts. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. Pursuant to the House Order of November the 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. As per the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on March the 10th, 2022, all those attending the meeting in person must wear a mask, except for members who are at their place during proceedings. Now, you can speak through a mask and be heard absolutely fully. I just wanted you to know that if you feel you need to wear a mask at all times. Now, I just want to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic and mute yourself when you're not speaking. Interpretation, and I may say that for those on the floor as well, because when the floor doesn't mute, I hear my voice like a disembodied thing shouting in the room. Now, please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, as I said, click on the microphone icon. Now, interpretation for those on Zoom, there is a round globe at the bottom of your set, and that is your interpretation button, and you can go into English or French for whatever you desire. And for those in the room, you know that you can use your earpiece to get your translation done. So we will begin, and I will just say that you're not allowed to take photographs of this meeting. And secondly, that the first round would be for witnesses. That's all of you in the little boxes here. And you're going to have 5 minutes to speak. That 5 minutes could be divided it's 5 minutes per organization. So if there are more than one of you on an organization, you can split it any way you like or just designate one person to speak. After that, there would be a question and answer period, and that will then be moved according to different kind of formulae that we have. So please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. Also, please remember to direct all questions through the chair. Thank you very much, everyone. And so we're going to begin this meeting. And with us today, we have the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television and Radio Artists, Eleanor Noble and Lisa Blanchette, Canadian Association of Community Television Users and Stations, Catherine Edwards, Executive Director, Amélie Hintz, Fédération des Télévisions.
Quebec Independent Community Television Federation.
First Canada, Scott Benzie, Executive Director, Directors Guild of Canada, Warren Sonoda, President, Dave Forget, National Executive Director. Is it Forget, Dave, or is it Forget?
It's Forget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And then the Music Publishers of Canada, Margaret McGuffin, Chief Executive Officer. So we will begin for 5 minutes with the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television and Radio Artists. And either Ms. Noble or Ms. Blanchette can make a decision who starts. For 5 minutes. Let's begin.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chairs, committee members, and staff. I'm Eleanor Noble. I'm a Canadian performer and National President of ACTRA, the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television and Radio Artists. Joining me today is Lisa Blanchette, ACTRA National's Director of Public Affairs and Communications. On behalf of ACTRA's 28,000 members working in English language screen productions across Canada, I'm pleased to appear today to share the artist's perspective as part of the committee's study of Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act. We've been closely following the progress of this bill, and like other industry stakeholders, we also want to ensure a strong and vibrant industry for Canadian content for years to come, which is why we were pleased to see the proposed legislation will require online undertakings, including foreign services, to contribute to the production and discoverability of Canadian programs. While we welcome the majority of the changes in Bill C-11 to amend the Broadcasting Act, we do, however, wish to voice our concern about some of the bill's amendments that would have a significant and detrimental impact on our industry, our jobs, and our culture. As a working Canadian performer, I can tell you Canadian content production is at risk. Before any changes are made to the current Broadcasting Act, we should acknowledge the existing Act has both served us well and has been remarkably technology neutral. Therefore, we believe any changes being contemplated to the Act should only be made if they will help better support and uphold the fundamental purpose of the Canadian broadcasting system, which is to ensure Canadians have access to original Canadian programming and music, as well as entertainment, information, and news programs. With that said, we must take the opportunity today to sound the alarm about a proposal in the bill that would significantly reduce the requirement to use Canadian creative and other resources. It would put Canadian stories and creators at great risk. While production activity in Canada is booming, even in the face of varying public health restrictions over the past 2 years, there is growing concern because opportunities to Canadian stories are decreasing and Canadian content production in both English and French is lagging further behind. We're seeing a downward trend in the production of Canadian content owned by Canadians and made by Canadians, Canadian writers, producers, directors, and performers. Profile 2021, released this past April by the Canadian Media Producers Association, captures the economic activity in the screen-based media sector between April 2020 and March 21st. The report highlights that Canadian content production declined by 12% in that period, while foreign service production saw a marginal increase of 1% over the same time period. We welcome foreign production investment over the long term, but we're concerned there will be fewer and fewer opportunities to tell Canadian stories. If we don't create an environment in which Canadian stories, storytellers, and creators can continue to thrive, our culture and identity may be lost. We must maximize the use of Canadian talent. To address the emergence of global online streaming services now providing programming to Canadians, Bill C-11 creates two classes of broadcasters: Canadian broadcasting undertakings, including domestic online undertakings, and foreign online undertakings. This approach becomes problematic when a lesser standard is introduced for foreign services. Specifically, Section 3.1(f)(1), which we speak about a lot, of the bill establishes a lesser standard for foreign services instead of adopting the stronger language found in 3.1(f), which governs Canadian broadcasting undertakings. Creating this two-tier approach would significantly reduce the requirement for foreign online undertakings to use Canadian creative talent and would devastate our screen-based media production sector. This is an industry that contributes more than $11 billion to our country's GDP and generates over 216,000 jobs for hardworking Canadians. For myself and fellow ACTRA members who are already precarious workers, this could lead to a loss of work opportunities for Canadian performers. The purpose of the Online Streaming Act is to equalize obligation between broadcasting undertakings to level the playing field, in the words of Canadian broadcasters. There is no rationale for establishing a lesser commitment for foreign online undertakings operating in Canada, given the financial strength and market clout. The goal must remain to create a level playing field between the domestic and foreign undertakings. ACTRA, along with other industry peers like the Directors Guild here today, agree that Bill C-11 must be amended to remove any reference to a lesser standard for foreign services. We've included proposals to amend the section 3.1(f). And we also, I just want to say, we also support the Coalition for the Diversity of Cultural Expressions and Racial Equity Media Collective. They've also put in proposals.
Thank you, Ms. Noble.
Thank you.
And now I go to the Canadian Association of Community Television Users and Stations for 5 minutes, either Ms. Edwards or Ms. Ince.
Thanks for inviting us. As the directors of the Canadian Association of Community TV Users and Stations and my colleague online, la Fédération des télévisions communautaires autonomes du Québec, our comments chiefly concern community TV, but we've consulted closely with our community radio colleagues. Our requested amendments to Bill C-11 are in sync. As described in our brief, the key challenges for the community element are the lack of a clear definition on the one hand and a description of its role on the other. The definition of the public and private elements are self-evident. They're based on ownership. In CRTC policy, community radio is defined as not-for-profit and community-owned, and the number of community radio stations has stayed steady at about 200 licensed stations and an estimated 60 Indigenous ones. But community TV was traditionally managed by the private sector and has suffered as a result, as the cable industry underwent massive ownership consolidation and technical interconnection of formerly separate cable systems over the last 2 decades. While there were once more than 200 distinct cable community channels, now there are no more than 10% of that number. The vast majority in smaller communities have been shuttered, and those that remain in more populous parts of the country have become regional specialty channels, such as the single province-wide Rogers TV in New Brunswick. Amélie?
Cable companies made a business case to the CRTC to close their stations, but communities were never consulted, and that is the problem. Real community media, as they are recognized internationally, are owned and operated by non-profit organizations rooted in their communities and present for the long term. Our goal is to fill this gap. Cactus brings together 25 non-profit community television stations outside of Quebec currently, and the Federation comprises 41 in Quebec, supported by the Ministry for Culture and Communications. The CRTC asked us if community television was still necessary in an age when you can shoot videos on your phone and upload them to YouTube. The result of this way of thinking was that in 2016, the CRTC diverted the vast majority of Canada's budget for community television, more than $150 million, to support private news networks. The value of community programming is being rediscovered thanks to the Local Journalism Initiative. While we realize that essential democratic and civic coverage is not happening on social media, concerns about fake news are growing, and we are grappling with the need to make our society more inclusive. Community media meet the requirements of broadcast license and are accountable to their boards of directors. These are safe spaces where minorities who fear being attacked on social media can seek production support and visibility. They are the antidote to the fractured communities and silos that social media creates, and they're a common platform for the entire community.
Community element be defined firstly by not-for-profit ownership and secondly by participation by the community in the production process. The second part was adopted, but not-for-profit was not. We were told that an exclusively not-for-profit definition put into question the status of the few remaining cable community channels. So we propose a compromise, a definition of the community element that includes but is not limited to not-for-profit community media organizations. What's important is that community-owned TV and radio stations be recognized in the Act as a viable, democratic, and sustainable model of broadcasting. Second, the community element is often overlooked in policymaking, and we believe this is because there's a lack of specificity in the Broadcasting Act regarding its role. Therefore, in C10, we proposed a slight rewording to Section 3.1R of the 1991 Act, which described the role of alternative programming services. The section closely described what the community element does, yet had never been used in CRTC policymaking to our knowledge. We were told this amendment did not pass for 3 reasons. First, we repeated the term not-for-profit. We've now taken that out since it will already have been mentioned in the definition of community element if our first amendment is adopted. Second, we used the term platform, which we were told isn't defined elsewhere in the Act, so we've taken it out. And we mentioned the importance of archiving community-generated content. We were told that that was outside the scope of the Broadcasting Act, so we've taken it out. We hope you can support this revised description of the role of the community element to guide the CRTC in its work. In closing, we rely on your understanding as parliamentarians of the importance of local accountable media for smaller communities and minorities, voices that sometimes do not fare well when lobbying at the CRTC. For this reason, we seek these amendments in law. Community media must be recognized as an essential part of the democratic infrastructure of Canada to ensure vibrant, inclusive, democratic, and civic coverage throughout our country. Thanks so much for your time.
Sorry, I muted myself by mistake.
The first media award.
Right. Scott Benzie, Digital First Canada, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for having me back. My name is Scott Benzie. I'm the Executive Director of Digital First Canada, an organization that advocates on behalf of creators in Canada that choose a free, user-generated content platforms as their main distribution method. I would like to spend a minute to directly address the structure of Digital First Canada. Digital First Canada is a new organization that has been bootstrapped from the team at Buffer Festival. Yes, we've received some funding from our industry partners, including platforms and private industry involved in the success of digital creators. No, we do not have a formal membership structure where we receive fees from the creators, nor do we receive any funding from the government, unlike some of our colleagues that have and will appear before you. Now to the task at hand, Bill C-11. It is a shame that we and a handful of people like us had to spend the last year or so arguing a now true and confirmed fact. User-generated content is in this bill. In fact, over the last year, I was publicly attacked and accused of being a purveyor of misinformation from officials for stating it. And even today, about 2 hours ago, the minister stated that people who say it's in are conspiracy theorists. UGC is in this bill, and saying otherwise is misleading or you are being misled. But now that it is on the table and in the open, let's have some constructive observations. I have had many conversations with our peers in legacy media about our support for the bulk of the bill that includes curated platforms in the Broadcast Act. And in addition, we have been having the fight about UGC platforms contributing more to Canadian creators for far longer than most of you have been on this file. With that being said, let's get a little technical. The exemption to the exclusion in 4.2 is not a sandbox. It is the Sahara Desert. And as crafted, includes almost the entire internet. I welcome being challenged on that, but it is a fact. Mr. Scott confirmed that while creators are not written into the bill themselves, their content can be treated as programs. And while that clause, all audiovisual content online is in the bill. And with UGC platforms, you cannot separate the platform from the content or that content from its creator. If the mandate of the regulator is only restricted by a policy directive, it is your duty to see that that power be wrestled away, because we might not like the next government so much. Now, I don't believe the UGC platform should be exempt from all regulations. I believe they should have to contribute to the cultural sector. I believe they should be contributing to the creators that use those platforms primarily. If we just roll the cash into the system, we will literally be subsidizing lobby groups on the back of independent digital creators. We will not be addressing the needs and support digital creators could use to grow faster. We believe in a higher level of transparency in the industry across the board. There are a lot of questions about where the money the platforms already contribute today are going. So what's the problem? Discovery. The minister has repeatedly assured digital creators that their videos would be exempt from the bill. The discovery clause does not reflect that promise. While there is no call for the CRTC to impose specific algorithms, there's that very problematic word, outcomes. Most platforms are binary, and the promotion of one piece of content results in the demotion of others. Well, who cares, you might ask? If it's Canadian, everybody should be happy. Well, that's just it. Digital creators do not qualify as Canadian, and even if they did, the process to have every piece of content certified is not just problematic, it is impossible. The bill has the intent of promoting Canadian content to creators, and while admirable, most Canadian creators do not care solely about the Canadian market. The platforms are built for global discovery, niche content globally, participatory, not passive. Forcing something unnatural to them is like local discovery is a recipe for failure and jeopardizes the success like the Indigenous creator renaissance on TikTok, Canadian musicians seeing global recognition, and the world-class gaming industry. There seems to be an impression that regulating the internet and forcing for certain content into the algorithm is a panacea for all that ails. Spoiler alert, it is not. Success online is hard work. It takes consistency, technical knowledge, and knowing how to engage and grow your community. It is hustle, not handouts. Imagine with me, if you will, legislation that actually helps not just digital creators, but those groups we have heard from that are struggling on the platforms. A convergence of Canadian talent as opposed to ripping one out in favor of another. This bill favors a failed legislative solution instead of education, cooperation, and acceleration. Imagine legislation where resources are put in place to join the Canadian culture sectors and amplify our strengths. We are not asking for anything in this bill, except for the protection that the minister has promised. Please fix this bill so we do not have to have the same conversation in the Senate or even in the courts for years to come. Finally, the world is watching our activities here. No country has ever taken this step to regulate content this way. And I would conclude with a very real warning. Canada cannot take this action and expect fair and equal treatment abroad. If the US, France, or other jurisdictions take the same approach, you will effectively kill a group of creators with global success, global contracts, with brands, and spread Canadian voices and values to a world that I believe benefits from them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benzie. And now I go to Directors Guild of Canada. Mr. Sonora or Mr. Foyer, go ahead, and whichever one of you want to begin for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Warren Sonoda. I'm the National President of the Directors Guild of Canada. With me today is Dave Forget, the DGC's National Executive Director. We appreciate the committee's invitation to present DGC's comments on Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act. The DGC is a national labor organization representing key creative and logistical professionals in the film, television, and digital media industries. Today, we have over 6,000 members covering all areas of direction, design, production, logistics, and editing. Bill C-11 represents the realization of a very historic opportunity to modernize Canada's broadcasting system, ultimately serving the interests of all Canadians by supporting the creative community and the Canadian audiences alike. Growing from 132,000 in 2011 to 216,000 jobs in 2021, Canada's film, television, and digital media sector is thriving, but is primarily driven by the foreign service production side of our industry. Now, as audience and revenues migrate to online broadcasting platforms, funding contributions to Canadian programming have steadily diminished. The new act will level the playing field for all broadcasters, whether they program delivery is mostly to Canadian homes via online, cable, or over the air. Now, historically, Canadian broadcasting public policy shared both economic and cultural goals, building a robust domestic production industry while ensuring the future of our artists and creators. This is the fine equilibrium Bill C-11 proposes to restore. The economic growth of an industry can be defined by various metrics, but too often the intangible long-term impact of cultural policy is not fully valued. It contributes to the development of a national identity, shared consciousness, and successful careers. And more precisely, we know there is no better tool than scripted content and documentary filmmaking to illustrate what cultural policy does. Shows like Schitt's Creek and Transplant, films like Scarborough or Beans, documentaries like Our People Will Be Healed and Anthropocene share the uniquely personal point of view of their Canadian creators. Now, the decision to safeguard the future and livelihood of Canadian creatives and storytellers rests in your hands, committee. Getting this right ensures diverse, original, high-quality Canadian programming for Canadian and international audiences for decades to come. In the absence of a rapid intervention to create an environment where Canadian artists and creators can flourish, the current ecosystem will remain unsustainable, leading over time to fewer opportunities and eventually the loss of our culture and identity. The DGC is aligned with Canadian broadcasters, as well as the production and creative communities, to urge the adoption of this legislation without delay, with one caveat. Please amend the bill to strengthen requirements for the use of Canadian talent. Going back to first principles, Canadian content is not just about who commissions it, who owns it, or on what platform the program is exhibited. It's about who makes it. Now, we mean, of course, the director, writers, performers, the artists, technicians, and professionals who create the programming, the entire creative team, and many colleagues that I work with every day who contribute to the creative process. Dave?
Thank you, Warren. Bill C-11, as currently drafted, establishes two standards for the requirement to use Canadian talent, with different rules for Canadian and foreign online broadcasters. Specifically, Section 3(1)(f) maintains the historic requirement that a, quote, broadcasting undertaking shall employ and make maximum use of, and in no case less than predominant use of, Canadian creative and other human resources, end of quote, but only for Canadian broadcasters, while 3(1)(f)(1) creates a significantly weaker obligation to, quote, make the greatest practicable use of Canadian creative and other human resources for foreign online undertakings. This objective can be achieved by using a common definition of Canadian program and applying similar requirements for both domestic and foreign online broadcasters. Section 3.1f remains the lifeblood of broadcasting policy, and while we understand the current definition of a Canadian program may need to be revised, we think it is imperative not to lower the standard for requirements to use Canadian talent and creative resources. Without making this amendment a priority, we're concerned that the positive impact of the new act on the domestic production sector would be limited. The opportunities to tell Canadian stories would continue to decrease by the alarming rate of, on average, 10% per year, to the point where both the English and French language markets would be unable to compete globally. Members of the committee, we thank you for your time and would be pleased to respond to any of your questions.
Gosh, you must have timed yourselves. Right on. Thank you very much. All right, and then I go to the Music Publishers of Canada, to Margaret McGuffin, Chief Executive Officer. Ms. McGuffin, for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It is my pleasure to appear this afternoon to discuss the importance of the Online Streaming Act. My name is Margaret McGuffin, and I am CEO of Music Publishers Canada. Music Publishers Canada is a membership-based organization largely made up of Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises representing all regions of the country, as well as large international companies with offices in Canada. Music publishers invest in thousands of Canadian songwriters and make significant investments into the songs and scores that are heard every day on the radio, on television, on streaming services, in video games, in film and television productions, and on new emerging platforms around the world. 79% of the revenues of my members flow to Canada from foreign sources. We know the importance of the global market. BC 11 is a long-awaited and much-needed update to the Broadcasting Act. We welcome the legislation's goal of bringing online broadcasting under the Act, and in particular of ensuring that streaming services help Canadians find Canadian songs and stories on platforms operating in Canada. As technology has evolved, so has the way Canadians consume content. Our members and the songwriters they work with have embraced these changes and are actively engaged on these new platforms, both in licensing the content and in creating new digital content. Music publishers and songwriters are digital creators. But digital streaming services have been in Canada for almost a decade without fully supporting Canadian music. These platforms are keen to capitalize on Canadian talent without fully supporting the environment that helps the industry grow. It is critical that this uneven playing field change now. Over the last few years, we have challenged the digital platforms to work with us to find ways to harness their technology to help Canadians promote Canadian songs and stories. And we will continue to do so. Most of the time these days, though, I hear about what the tech platforms can't do, not what they can do. Clearly, the CRTC needs the ability to regulate when necessary to further Canada's broadcasting policy. Bill C-11 does just that. It provides an important balance by giving the Commission the tools it needs to regulate when market forces fail. Modernizing the Broadcasting Act will ensure that its technology evolves and online platforms continue to grow. Canadian creative industries, including music publishers, songwriters, and composers, will also continue to thrive. Without this modernization of the Broadcasting Act, Canada will see parts of our creative industry suffer. We risk an entire generation of new young storytellers and emerging businesses who will lose opportunities to develop, grow, and benefit from their talents, and whose songs may never be discovered or promoted in their own country. As you've heard earlier in these meetings, this is especially dangerous for songwriters, composers, and music publishers whose work represents and gives voice to our Indigenous and French language cultures. The Online Streaming Act will undoubtedly support Canadian creators and the businesses that invest in them by creating jobs and ensuring that our stories can be found and heard in English, French, and Indigenous languages. Let me close by saying that, contrary to what you've heard earlier, the proposed amendments will not disadvantage digital creators from exploring new opportunities on new digital platforms or limit freedom of expression, nor will C11 break the internet or ruin the user experience. Those working in the creative industry ecosystem are some of the biggest proponents of freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression. C11 addresses a distribution issue. It does not create a freedom of expression issue. Why are we seeing these scare tactics from globally dominated tech companies? The bottom line is they have made a healthy fortune by benefiting from the Canadian system and not contributing to it. It is time for that to end. I would encourage you all to think critically about the arguments made by the tech companies who extract revenue without the corresponding investment. It is our opinion that C11 will be a much-needed modernization of the Broadcasting Act to address very real inequalities that have resulted from an increasingly digitized world. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGuffin. And now we're going to go to the question and answer part of this. And we're starting it with a round of questions. First round, 6 minutes for each political party. And that means questions and answers. So everyone try to be as succinct as you possibly can. To begin, for the Conservative Party of Canada, John Nater. John, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to take this first round of question on behalf of my my colleagues here today. I want to start with Mr. Benzie from Digital First Canada, and a few questions I want to start. But first, before I do my actual questions, I just want to give you just 30 seconds just to highlight a few of the successes that we've seen with Digital First creators. Some of those creators that made their start here in Canada using different platforms and that are now seeing great success internationally. I just wanted you to highlight a couple of those examples.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, there literally are so many we can't even count them, and a lot of these people have gone on to international success and success within a more traditional model. Everybody quotes Bieber, The Weeknd, Alessia Cara, Shawn Mendes. From musically, obviously Lily Singh, Peter McKinnon might be Canada's most popular photographer right now. Elle Mills, who's creating short films. It's really endless. But when we see Indigenous creators like Notorious Cree, That Warrior Princess, Sheena Nova emerge and find careers without gatekeepers, I don't think that's something that we should play lightly with. I think we should take very careful consideration of the environment that has allowed that.
And to that end, I mean, that leads into the question. You talked about the sandbox versus the Sahara Desert when it comes to clause 4.2. I want to follow up on that and how it can impact the concept of discoverability. So we hear the term discoverability. We know that it's included. It's going to be part of the mandate of how CRTC implements discoverability. But how would discoverability and applying that to content that's produced by a digital first creator, how would that impact them in their success outside of Canada?
Yeah, so a couple different ways. First off, I'd like to state that we really have to have a conversation about what qualifies as Canadian content before having a meaningful discussion around that. But like I said, the platforms are mostly binary, and they're built to push content or for users to pull content that's relevant to them. And then most of the algorithms score that content based on how it's engaged with, if it's shared, if it's watched the whole time. Any kind of artificial manipulation of that algorithm and putting content in front of people that they might not want or they might not want to see, regardless of what that content is, it's actually going to hurt that content. So it puts us in a position where we're not just hurting the content that's been deprioritized. We've obviously hurt that one, but we're actually hurting the content that we're trying to prioritize as well. I think there's a way to help everybody on these platforms, but discovery is not it. And there is no good reason that I have heard for it to be in this bill.
And to that end, I mean, you have an open letter on your website to the Minister of Canadian Heritage, and I'm going to summarize it very briefly. But you make the comment that the Broadcasting Act, the Broadcasting Act as a piece of law in Canada, was never designed for digital first creators, for the new medium of of online creative exports, for lack of a better phrase. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? Why is it? What is it about the online platforms or the online presence that doesn't fit well into the traditional broadcasting understanding that we have?
So thank you for the question. Again, the Traditional Broadcast Act was built to highlight and prioritize Canadian content to Canadians for fear of having Big Brother down from the south overriding our airwaves. That's not what these digital platforms are for. They're for global discovery. Canadian discovery for Canadian content creators online is almost an afterthought. Well, it's nice, and I'm not lumping everybody into the same boat. Everybody's a little bit different. It's the global discovery that matters. And if when we put content into the algorithm, it's pushed locally and not engaged with, that's going to affect all global discovery as well. It's going to punish it in the algorithm. More importantly, and I said at the end of my statement, if other jurisdictions decide to follow Canada's lead and do this, that is a death knell for the Canadian digital content creator industry. The US is our biggest market. Canadians are signing global contracts. It's kind of flipped it on its head. We're now invading other markets with our great content. There's no reason to be protectionist about digital content. There's no limited shelf space.
And this might be going outside of your specific area of expertise, but are there any risks through the Canada-U.S. trade agreement, through CUSMA, with legislation such as this?
Yeah, you're correct. I don't mind stating when things are above my head and out of my bailiwick, and that is one of them.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll find someone who can comment on that. One last question on this matter, and hopefully I still have enough time, Madam Chair. But
have a minute.
Have a minute? Super. In the lead up to and following C10, one of your major criticisms was that digital first creators hadn't been part of the process. You hadn't been involved. You hadn't been consulted. I want to know what type of efforts have been made thus far to engage with digital first creators, as well as you mentioned that you want the legislation to say what the minister promises, that user generated content won't be included. So would simply removing 4.2 achieve that, or would there be other types of amendments you'd like to see to ensure that the legislation reflects what the minister says on it?
I think 4.2 is the big one that could obviously go. The bigger issue for us is the discovery clauses, more so than the inclusion of the platforms. And I will say this on a positive note. I've had more conversations with the department, with Heritage.
11 seconds.
And with the minister's team as well since that time. So things are going better and we are being heard. I'm here. So I thank everyone for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benzie. And now I go to the Liberals for 6 minutes. Tim Lewis. Tim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of our witnesses, both here and online virtually. If I can begin by talking to Ms. McGuffin from Music Publishers Canada. We've heard as recently as today from witnesses that CanCon definitions are outdated and they do need to be reviewed. Can you talk about how our Online Streaming Act, the C11, is already starting to redefine CanCon and what the new criteria of that bill must be to consider this redefinition? What criteria would be important to our culture, our cultural sovereignty, and our creators?
That's a very interesting question, and thank you for asking it. We're very interested in modernizing what CanCon could look like for the music industry. I'm not an expert on television. I will only talk about music. What we want to achieve, and our priority is to make sure that we're making sure that emerging songwriters and emerging businesses are found and have an audience in Canada and have an infrastructure around them before they make the decision to go out on a global scale. Many of my companies prioritize the global market before they prioritize Canada. We've had very successful Canadian songwriters and composers. Many you won't know their names. But CanCon for radio and television helped us create that success. And now we're looking at the next stage where we need to carefully look at what can be done to make sure the next businesses are being formed and the emerging creators being found. Many of them will need to have a regional support network in a very small part of Canada before they decide to tour to participate in all of these platforms. And so we need to make sure we find a way to support those businesses so the opportunities aren't lost.
And what way specifically would C11 be starting to move that conversation forward to make sure that we're moving into the 21st century here?
Well, definitely we need to look at modernizing how we find Canadian songs and stories. And we want to give the CRTC the tools as a modernized place to have that discussion. I've challenged all of the tech companies we work with, and we work with all of the ones who you're hearing about today. We license them, we work with them to try to find out what tools they're offering creators and businesses to use their platform more efficiently. I want them to tell me what they can do. We may customize at the CRTC what is good for TikTok versus what is good for YouTube, what is good for the next service. But we need an incentive for companies to engage in Canada and invest, because many have chosen often to initially not put people on the ground or to be involved with Canadian creators. There needs to be an incentive for that to happen. And for those who want to make the investment, let's customize it so it is good for their platform.
I appreciate that. You mentioned that you said artists are actively engaged themselves as digital creators. And I would like to make sure that we can see this is not an us versus them debate between traditional artists and digital creators. People are saying that these traditional legacy players, they don't have presence online, and that the traditional industry is sort of living in the past and the digital creators are the future. We heard from Professional Music Publishers Association last week that music sector itself is digital, and you mentioned it too, that we need our stories to be found and heard, and you're using the digital media to do that, and your industry is digital first. Can you speak to the place, the presence of traditional artists online as digital creators themselves?
Absolutely. My companies are using these platforms on a daily basis with their content that they are creating, as well as assisting their songwriters and their composers to create for these platforms and fit it into a marketing plan and a professional development plan that moves them beyond just one platform, but to other parts of the world, which could include live touring for some, may include co-writing in Nashville or Denmark for others. But this is not an us versus them. My members are going out daily on these platforms to look for the next songwriter they're going to sign, and they're signing them, and they're supporting them, and they're investing in them.
Well, you talk about looking for the next songwriter. We've heard stories of, the few that have had tremendous success online. But we know that overwhelming majority of artists, it's almost impossible to make a living through social media and online streaming. Majority of Canadian creators on YouTube, for example, make less than the median of the average artist. A million streams sounds on something like Spotify sounds like a lot, but it's only a few $1,000s. So how can we ensure that the system maximizes the potential for artists and creators to have full careers and support them regardless of the platform?
We definitely need to invest in them. We need to educate them on these platforms. We need to engage with the platforms to make sure that Canadians are using it in a way that will maximize the number of plays. We see on these platforms that the top 10% of views are controlled by 100 or 200 creators and companies. The bottom percent of the views are filled with 10,000. You cannot develop a company or have a creative career in that bottom 10%. So we need to be working with creators and companies as they emerge regionally and in the Francophone community to allow them to grow at a pace that allows them then to move into those upper tiers. And if they get played, they will get paid.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Tim. That's it. And now I'm going to go to the Bloc Québécois, Martin Champoux. Mr. Champoux for 6 minutes, sorry. I was going to cut you off there with a minute, Martin. Don't yell at me, please.
C'est pas mon genre, Madame la Présidente.
I wouldn't yell at you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thanks again to the witnesses for being with us today for another important meeting of this committee studying Bill C-11. I would like to ask a question to Ms. Ains from the Quebec Independent Community Television Federation. Often we talk about the erosion of local news coverage, local media, and media that is leaving communities, including in Quebec. Can you talk to us about the impacts on local journalism if C11 were to recognize the value of that, and if your definition were to be adopted? Yes, it's a trend that we've been observing for a few years. There's a media crisis. Yes, there is a funding crisis, it's true, but that funding crisis means that there is less and less funding in regions. Are you there? Yes. I just saw Dr. Fry making signs.
Oh, oui, pardon. Je vais parler plus lent.
I'll speak more slowly. So, major media is not able to have representation in all communities in Quebec. Canada also is an extremely spacious territory, and it is an issue to have coverage everywhere. However, community media are everywhere. They have been there for years, and they're dependable because they are created by the community, by and for the community to meet a need. So I would humbly submit that community media are underutilized by the current system because we are already present. So it would not be extremely expensive to promote local media in all parts of the province and also across the country because of that, because we are already present. This could be done at a fraction of the cost that will be possible with major media. And we can cover what's happening because we are people on the field, in the field, we're already present. So I think by recognizing in this bill the role of local community media, the role that we can play would be positive, and it will help us to better do our work. Mr. Champoux. Yes, all you have to do is visit the regions to see how true that is. I have a question for Ms. McGuffin. In your opening statement, you said that you regularly communicate with the major platforms. Can you tell us about these negotiations and these communications? How are your arguments taken?
Several layers of communication with these platforms as they enter the Canadian market. The first one, obviously, is this is not a copyright hearing, but if just for your information, we talk to them about are they going to be licensed, how they're going to be licensed. Our members participate with SOCAN and CMRA as they are licensed in the rate setting process. But we also then know that many of our Canadian-based companies also then want to use the platforms. And so we have a tech summit once a year. Google, TikTok, Amazon all come, meet with our members, talk about the tools that are available to businesses and creators, about the data that's being supplied. And in fact, when I go to New York, back to travel for New York Song Week on June 13th. We're going to be meeting with these platforms there to meet with the people who really understand publishing and songwriting to see how can we have producers who are not artists discovered on these platforms. Those are the kind of discussions we have. And I know my colleague at APAM has done the same type of work.
Oui, j'espère que vous ne perdrez pas.
Yes, I hope you don't lose your optimism and you'll continue to represent the Canadian and Francophone cultural milieus. Thank you very much, Ms. McGuffin. Next, I'll turn to Mr. Benzie. Mr. Benzie, you already appeared before the committee, and I appreciated what you brought to the discussion. And you continue to communicate with members of cabinet and the department. So I also appreciated your opening statement today. And can you tell us the number of members of your association? Can you tell us how many people you represent? And after we spoke, actually, Mr. Benzie, I had the opportunity to speak with young YouTubers who broke through online. They create different types of content, sometimes music, sometimes audio visual. And these individuals have trouble breaking through. And I asked them if your organization would interest them. And first of all, they didn't even know they could be represented by an organization. Thank you, Madam Chair. 33 seconds. Some of them say it would be beneficial, and I know we just have 30 seconds. I hope I can get you to come back to this after. But don't you think that more consultation would be necessary on your part for people on this type of platform?
Always open to more consultation. Thank you, Mr. Shampoo. But you also said that you spoke to a bunch of creators who have broken through and are also having trouble breaking through. So I'm a little bit confused, but our Francophone constituency does have unique needs, and I look forward to exploring them further.
Thank you. And now I go to Mr. Julian of the New Democratic Party for 6 minutes, Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to all our witnesses for being here today. This is important testimony that we are getting. We deeply appreciate your availability in speaking to committee about Bill C-11, but also about the possible amendments that can actually improve it. I'm going to start with Ms. Noble and Ms. Blanchette from ACTRA. Thank you for your work nationally. I'm certainly hearing from ACTRA members across the country. Very favorable to C-11. But you have pointed out something that's extremely important, that effectively you can't have a level playing field if you've got two standards around Canadian production. And currently, the way the bill is structured for foreign online platforms, they don't have the same responsibilities in terms of Canadian production and Canadian employment. Could you talk about the importance of making sure that the bill does set a level playing field and that foreign online platform companies actually have the same responsibilities that Canadian broadcasters do?
I'll go. Eleanor, as long as you're okay. Thank you for the question. And I think you heard a similar pitch from the DGC from Dave Forget in his presentation. We have been working together with industry stakeholders, with the Writers Guild as well, and the Canadian Media Producers Association, and the CDCE, the Coalition for Cultural Expression. And we are in agreement that having one standard definition, as Dave outlined, is the way to go, and to make it as strong as possible, that making maximum use is a strong and appropriate standard. It has served us well for decades, and we think it should continue to be the standard applicable to broadcasting undertakings operating in Canada. I think the traditional baseline should endure, and I hope that answers your question.
It does, but I did want to extend the same opportunity to Mr. Snowda and Mr. Forget as well for the Directors Guild. The same question about Canadian employment.
Thank you very much for the question, and just to echo Lisa's comments, I guess I would just add one thing. Having two standards, as has been pointed out, is potentially harmful. And is unnecessary, quite frankly. In our comments up front, we talked about the fact that it's not just who owns it, it's not just what platform the content is exhibited on, but who makes it. And who makes it are the Canadians, both in the key creative positions, directors, designers, writers, and so on, but the crews, and the crews that Warren referenced that he works with on a day-to-day basis. There's no need to have two sets of standards. And it's also, just if I can demystify something, there is plenty of flexibility already built into the system. And so there have been calls for revisiting or perhaps recalibrating the requirements around Canadian content. We're not calling for that, but we think it's a sensible process that will take place. There's no need to double. I mean, there's a sort of a rule of thumb that says you don't need two rules to do the job of one. So if that revision and that analysis is called for, that will take place. It doesn't have to take place in the scope of the Act. When it does take place, stakeholders like the DGC Act and others will be there, and that any changes or modifications will then be applicable equally to the Canadian broadcasters in the current system and the online players, including the foreign ones who are doing business. Let's have one standard. Clarity equals predictability and sustainability. And so I think that's what we're looking for. And having multiple standards just confuses things.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to Ms. Edwards from Cactus. You've been a strong proponent of community broadcasting. We've certainly seen an erosion in my community, an elimination of community television, except we've got volunteers stepping up with New Westminster Television, and I'd like to shout out to their valuable work. You mentioned, I believe, if I understood it correctly, 90% erosion of community television supports, right? That effectively we've lost a wide variety of the community television supports that existed before. So how important is it to amend Bill C-11 so we actually have a very clear obligation around community television that involves members of the community?
So in C-11, our hope is that just to give you an example, in 2016, the last time the CRTC reviewed its local and community TV policy, there's public notices of consultation that go out and then stakeholders can weigh in. The not-for-profit community TV groups that are stepping in to fill service holes left by, in the wake of cable TV closures weren't even mentioned. So there was questions about, we all know that cable community channels have been kind of regionalized and this and that, but there was no mention that there's actually this viable other sector growing up in its place. And so what we were looking for in the Act is recognition, so that when we talk about, who's doing the work at the community level, not-for-profits are at the table, so that when the Online Streaming Act goes into law and is referred to the CRTC to put in practice and there's more money in the Canadian broadcasting system, at that point we're hoping that a community access media fund that could fund community radio, community TV, and there's new online digital types of media, virtual reality, video game production, where community groups are also involved in, can be funded. So the funding comes, at the next stage when there's clear definitions of what our role is supposed to be in the Act.
Thank you very much. I think
that's right. Absolutely.
Can we mute on the floor, please? Thank you.
Thank
you.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I finished, so you don't need to mute me.
Yes, you have. I just don't like hearing my voice echoing across the room. That's all. So if people mute their mics, that won't happen. So thank you very much. We go to the second round now, and we're going to go to Ms. Thomas for the Conservatives for 5 minutes, please.
Awesome. Thank you. My first question is going to go to Mr. Benzie, Scott, and it is this. When we look at this bill, it could be divided up into a couple of different sections. One would be the monetary repercussions that it is going to have, in particular for those that are large streaming companies, such as the Netflix and Disneys of the world. However, we are also made aware that user-generated content such as YouTube creators, Facebook, TikTok, etc., they are also captured. And so there's a good chance that they too will be asked to contribute financially to the artists who function in a more traditional sense. So there's the monetary side. Then there's this other side, which has to do with discoverability. In other words, having content forced in front of the eyeballs of Canadians because the government, through the CRTC, the commissioner, feels that it needs to be made apparent to them. This will have a huge impact on digital first creators, no doubt. You've already talked a little bit about the impact that this discoverability clause will have. In terms of bumping some content up in the queue and some down, making some successful and some not, choosing some to win and some to lose. Mr. Benzie, my question for you is, in your estimation then, when you listen to the minister say, no, user-generated content is not captured, but you listen to Mr. Scott, the chair of the CRTC, say, yes, in fact, user-generated content is captured. What impact does that have on you, and where do you end up, what position do you take on behalf of the creators that you represent?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a really interesting position to be in, to be honest, where there's two diametrically opposed positions of exactly what's in the bill and what's not in the bill. So it's kind of difficult. I mean, by the letter of the legislation, UGC is in the bill. We haven't seen a policy directive. We don't know what the policy directive is going to say. And, policy directives can change with another government, another heritage minister, whenever. So it really leaves us in an uncomfortable position of uncertainty around our work and around our line of businesses. And I don't think that's fair. And all we've been asking for is to be written into the legislation to reflect what the minister is saying. And I don't think that should be a difficult lift. Honestly, I cannot tell why those clauses are still in there. It benefits nobody. And I would like to say in my time, in the spirit of cooperation, Margaret McGuffin, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think the platform should support all these education programs, and we should be putting in accelerators. We should be lighting a fire as opposed to, we should be pouring gasoline on a fire as opposed to dampening it. But you don't need discovery for any of that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Hope that's a long way of answering your question.
Thank you, Mr. Benzie. Maybe I'm just going to go in a slightly different direction.
Sure.
And that is, you made a comment before with regard to digital first creators, and you said, one of the things that contributes to their great success is the fact that they don't have to deal with gatekeepers. Tell me a little bit more about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the platforms are free and open to use. So they're restricted by nobody. Everybody has an opportunity to upload their content and to find their audience. It's niche content distributed globally. That niche normally exists around the world. It's a wonderful opportunity for anybody to get their content made. We've heard from creators that have been rejected by gatekeepers. There's 4 broadcasters here in this country. It's 4 people sitting at desks in Toronto. And if you can't get through them, you can't get your content made. The removal of gatekeepers has been the greatest piece of Canadian cultural renaissance in history. Tesher is a Punjabi singer from Saskatoon. In what universe does that happen without the platforms? It just speaks to their power, and we should be embracing it and supporting raising other creators up to their levels. And we can do it with the right programs.
So, Mr. Benzie, how does this bill distort that then? Would they still have access to these platforms without the traditional gatekeepers, or would that be distorted?
Well, no, they'd still have access, but now the government would be mandating which content is being put to the top of the system. Simple math, if you have 10 total spots that you can go get as a creator, and now 3 or 4 of them are being set aside for approved CanCon, you now as a creator only have 6 or 7 spots left. It becomes math at that point. And that's not to say officially promoting content into algorithms is a disastrous idea anyway, and it's not going to help any content get discovered globally. It's going to hurt it.
Okay. I want to tap into that just a little bit more here, because what you're saying basically is if we put walls around Canadian producers, content creators, in order to quote unquote protect them, we will also harm them. What do you mean?
You will only harm them. You won't protect them. There is no positive scenario for artificially manipulating the algorithms. The algorithm will punish that content if it is not engaged with, if it is not watched, if it is not liked, etc. We can't create a culture of gated content on free-to-use platforms. It's meant for global discovery. Targeting that content locally I can't express how bad of an idea that is.
So essentially what you're saying is that it's going to harness them. It's going to prevent them from being able to go the distance that they could on their own.
100%. We will see less success stories globally from Canada if this legislation is passed and discoverability is messed with, for sure.
Great. Mr. Benzie, in the time that I have remaining, I'm wondering if perhaps you could just leave us with an explanation of the ways that this legislation could be fixed so that it does adequately...
I'm sorry, Ms. Thomas, you have no time remaining.
No, with all due respect, Chair.
Yes, with due respect, and my stop clock, you have no time remaining. I'm sorry. You have 5 minutes, not 6. Thank you very much. Mr. Coteau for the Liberals, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair. So I have a couple questions for Mr. Benzie. But before I start, I just want you to know that, when we talk about the algorithm, I do agree that we shouldn't regulate algorithms, but I do have some questions just about, you bring up the topic of algorithms a lot, and I just wanted to find out from you. Do you know the algorithm for many of these platforms? Has it been revealed to you?
We are not very good friends with the, oh, sorry, am I okay? I heard a bad echo. Algorithms are a funny thing. I think that, I don't know the algorithm. There are best practices that
from any platform? Any algorithm from any platform?
Well, nobody knows the algorithm. There's no magical mystical cause behind a curtain.
So you keep talking about
learning and AI.
You keep talking about, there's a, we want to, keep things fair, removal of the gatekeeper, artificial manipulation. If you don't know the algorithm, how do you know that it's so fair?
Because it's equal across the globe.
But you don't know the algorithm.
Well, nobody really knows the algorithm.
Can I ask you a hypothetical question?
I'd like to answer this question.
If I was
first.
a platform owner, if I owned
Yeah.
the property for a certain algorithm, could I manipulate it to favor one artist over the other?
I actually have no idea.
Of course you can. That's why people pay money to be put on the top of a certain, that's advertising, right? If I pay money, if I paid into Google, I can go to the top of the list in some cases, correct? Can you do the same in platforms?
Could you buy advertising on a platform? Yeah, you could do it on television.
So you can manipulate the algorithm, right, and come up before someone else, correct?
Sure, in theory.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Like, overall, I think we all, doesn't matter who you are, if you're Canadian, you want fairness in the system. And you want a system that, treats artists fairly. You're saying that, by even, laying down some basic principles like, let's get some Canadian content, let's create an element of guaranteed fairness. You're saying that that's manipulating the algorithm, but yet you don't even know what the algorithm is that you're defending. So my point is this, is that as a Canadian, don't you think it's a good thing for us to support Canadian artists? Don't you think it's a good thing for us to look for ways to, to level the playing field and put in place some high-level guarantees so at the end of the day, we know there is no manipulation that you keep saying we should try to prevent?
Can you define Canadian artists?
You understand. I think you understand exactly what I mean when I say.
I actually don't.
Well, you turn on Canadian radio. What is it? 35%? Is it 35% still? Canadian radio of content. You turn on Canadian radio. Put it on Boom 97.3. I think it is that I listen to sometimes. I get to listen to some Platinum Blonde once in a while. I get to hear some good Corey Hart, some Bryan Adams, and that's a guarantee when I turn on the radio. Don't you think it would be nice in this country, your country, my country, to actually go onto the internet, which is the #1 distributor of content now, and actually get some good Canadian content to guarantee that? Don't you think that's a good thing?
Can I answer the question, please?
Of course.
So two points, if I may.
Sorry, hold, please.
Really bad echo.
Please. There's a very bad echo. Someone has got
Sorry.
my mic open on the floor. So as soon as you finish speaking, just mute, please.
Okay. I'll make 2 points. And the first one is an important one. When you talk about those artists that you're hearing on the radio, they are certified Canadian. So what do we tell all the Canadian creators that aren't certified and are just plying their craft independently, that they're not to be included in that discussion? Secondly, the second point to that is, what do we do when it's actually counterproductive and it actually hurts those creators to focus on promoting them locally when that's not what anybody wants?
Is anything wrong for lawmakers, for Canadians to expect at the end of the day that when they go onto the internet and they go onto a platform that you're going to be able to find some good Canadian content? It's a good thing for this country. It's not about creating an artificial, manipulated gatekeeping system. It's about promoting good Canadian talent. And, I'm going to continue to support Canadian talent in any way possible. Thank you so much.
In theory, I agree with you.
Okay, good. We agree.
33 seconds.
Thank you very much. I'm done.
Oh, well, thank you. And so we're going to move to Mr. Shampoo for 2.5 minutes, please, Martin.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll leave Mr. Benzie alone for a few minutes. I would like to speak to either Ms. Noble or Ms. Blanchette about 3.1f, which is an extremely important change proposed by ACTRA. Ms. Noble, earlier you had to cut your comments short, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to comment further.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we've included a proposal to amend Section 31F of the bill, which acknowledges the essential role for Canadian creators and retains the concept of the nature of the undertaking to recognize that all online services will be contributing to the creation of Canadian content. So, yeah, and Lisa, you want to add any more to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we think that the Online Streaming Act could actually be game-changing for the future of Canadian content creation, and it's a major opportunity for performers in terms of jobs and exposure. Amending Section 31F is crucial for us, and our goal is to equalize the regulatory obligations across all broadcasting undertakings, delivering similar programming to avoid a cascade effect of traditional broadcasters seeking to lower their obligations to match those of online undertakings.
Donc, c'est effectivement de rester.
So it is to maintain what we have going. Thank you. Mr. Benzie, I now have a question for you. Everything would lead us to believe that C11 will be adopted. And you will be able to go before the CRTC. For the Bloc Québécois this year, we want to reintroduce the concept to recourse to the Governor and Council. Do you think there should be an additional tool? 30 seconds. Do you think there should be an additional tool?
I'm sorry, Mr. Shampoo. I want to give that all due respect. I don't know. I'm kind of new to all this. I don't know what deferring to council means, to be honest.
C'est simplement.
Well, it is a way to contest a CRTC decision if we believe that it goes against the interests of a given group. So in your opinion, once the regulation will have been passed by the CRTC, do you think it would be a tool that would be useful to you?
Perhaps Mr. Benzie can answer that in another round. I'm sorry, Martin, that's it. Peter Julian for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I want to go to Ms. McGuffin and ask 2 questions to you. First off, you've mentioned that the web giants don't contribute as much to community as they should. So what you're very clearly advocating is that C11 helps to level that playing field. I wanted to ask you about that. And then secondly, and this is a question I'll direct to you and also to Mr. Benzie, we've heard testimony that Out TV that was excluded from a number of the online streaming platforms. And so we're having this conversation about gatekeepers. But it seems to me that this is an example of gatekeeping where a whole community is simply excluded from being present on online streaming platforms. Does that not indicate that we need to start to step up to provide for that level playing field so that those kinds of exclusions can't occur? I'll go for you to you first, Ms. McGuffin.
Thanks for that question. We really want to make sure that for emerging creators and for our companies that are emerging and are growing, that they get the support of Factor and Music Action, who have invested in emerging creators. They may not be the ones you're seeing on TikTok right now, but they may be the ones in 5 years. So we need to make sure we're building and not just outsourcing our creative to the international companies.
And on the issue of the exclusion of Out TV?
I don't have a comment on that.
Okay. Mr. Benzie, can I go to you? Because you have spoken about gatekeepers a number of times, but here's an example of gatekeeping that is taking place with the web giants, excluding from online streaming platforms. Now, does that not worry you when you hear that sworn testimony before committee?
Yeah, it does.
39 seconds.
No problem. I agree with Brad. I think on curated platforms where there is a editorial decision being made, like Roku or Amazon, etc., those are acting as broadcasters, and I believe they should be subject to the Broadcast Act. Brad can upload all the content he wants to to YouTube or TikTok or Snapchat or Facebook, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. There's no gatekeeper.
Thank you very much. You have 11 seconds, Peter. Even you cannot make use of that. Thank you very much.
Important point that we've discussed, Madam Chair. I will use the 11 seconds just to stress the importance that we are seeing gatekeeping taking place now, which I think underscores the importance of the discussion we're having around C11.
Thank you. I'm now going to go to the Conservative Party. Mr. Upal, 5 minutes, please. Mr. Upal? We cannot hear you. Clerk, there is a problem with sound.
Mr. Upal, is it at all possible that your mic is muted at the headset level?
Say something, Tim.
Mr. Upal, we're seeing that your headset is selected and connected, but we're still not getting any sound from you, I'm afraid. Is there a mic connection or something, a button to push somewhere that might mute your microphone? Mr. Upal, I'm afraid someone's going to be calling you shortly.
So, Tim, do you mind going after the Liberal? We have time. Okay, thanks. Lisa Hepner for 5 minutes, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for your testimony today. I think I would just like to stick on this same idea that we've been talking about gatekeepers, and I'd like to go back to Ms. McGuffin, because you did speak very eloquently in your opening statement about the scare tactics that we're seeing from some of the platforms right now. So I'm wondering if you could just expand a little bit about the type of power that we're seeing from platforms and gatekeeping that you've seen.
It's been very interesting watching legislation being passed around the world in reference to the tech companies. And what we saw in the last 2 years out of Europe around their Copyright Act and the misinformation and the misleading statements that were made around that Copyright Act is something we can learn from here in Canada. That we also saw this in Australia around their newspaper legislation, where Google made misleading statements, threatened to that this was going to break the internet. It is a script that we are seeing over and over again, and you as parliamentarians are going to see it as we move to other kinds of legislation. We need to make sure that the misinformation ends, that there is a way of going through the information that's being presented and making sure we're not misleading the public or scaring people into thinking the internet is going to break. The internet is not going to be broken around C11.
Thank you. And I'd like maybe Catherine Edwards would like to weigh in. I saw you nodding your head along with some of the testimony earlier. What do you think about the power of platforms to perform gatekeeping roles?
Well, just a couple things that popped to mind. I think I sort of agree with Mr. Coteau in that I took a master's in civic media in Boston a couple of years ago. And one of the things we talked a lot about is that algorithms are never neutral. They're always informed by the biases of the people that write them. So, for example, for Black people to get a mortgage in the United States is much more difficult than for a white person. It's kind of like young men getting car insurance in Canada. It's assumed that they're more likely to have an accident, so it's harder for them to get it and the rates go up. Those are algorithms. You type in to get an estimate online. It's all these factors are already in there. They're not gender neutral. They're not race neutral. They're not nation neutral. So I think it's totally, I think every algorithm is going to be different, what its biases are. But I totally think that it's legitimate for the Canadian government to study those biases and to make sure that Canadians do have equal access to those platforms.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Sonoda, thank you for joining us today as well. You guys spoke very eloquently as well about the state of Canadian arts and culture and how you've seen a decline over the past few years. Can you just give us a little bit of context about the 1991 Broadcasting Act that's already in place, supporting Canadian content, and what that's done to our arts and culture in this country to date?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. At the 1991 Broadcast Act, I remember reading it. This is prior to film school, and I thought it was poetry. The act that you are putting together will last not just a generation, but generations. It's what 1991 was 32 years, 31 years. I'm not good at math. It not just protected the Canadian voice, it nurtured it. And with the migration from Canadian storytelling from the linear broadcast world that we know to what is now the online streaming world, we need the same sort of act and legislation to continue what we're doing. The work we're doing is not finished. It won't be finished. Even though Schitt's Creek won every Emmy last year, we still have more stories to tell. And our creators need to do that. So yes, the act is consequential that way. Was there, a follow-up?
So my follow-up would just be, how urgent is a modernization of the Broadcast Act, in your opinion?
Oh, we need to do this now. And we need to do this immediately, and I'm glad that this is going through committee. Again, it's going to take time after this is passed to do the ways and means, which we like to call it. But again, we need to make sure that this is solid, and it will last, hopefully another 30 years. And that's why it's platform agnostic, and it centers Canadian talent in storytelling.
Thank you very much, and that's it, Lisa. Now, Mr. Upal, how are we doing? You are muted. Can you unmute now? Can we hear you? No, we cannot. I know that John Nader is dying to take his place. John, I don't think we're going to hear from Tim. Do you want to go for it?
That's fine, Madam Chair. Happy to take another turn. And I just feel, excited that the committee wants to hear me ask questions so often. I want to follow up a couple of points that we've talked about a bit about earlier. First, I want to go back to Mr. Benzie. And just a little bit about algorithms, and I think a lot of times we can see algorithms for what they are, and we can see algorithms for what we might want them to be, or what we might want to imagine them for them to be. But in your opinion, with the assumption that algorithms may not always be completely neutral, do you think that the government should have a role in adjudicating the algorithms of these entities?
Yeah, so I think what I was trying to say is, algorithms are theoretically content agnostic, right? They react to how people are engaging with content, and they have profiles of who people are and try to serve that content up to other people. I will say that, I am all for algorithmic transparency. I think we should be having conversations about what goes into an algorithm and how it works. I just know that artificially manipulating it is not going to work, and that's a terrible idea for a number of reasons. But there also is no, if we take YouTube as an example, this is machine learning and AI. And while to my colleague's point, there may have been biases to put into it, we're not going to be able to call Mr. Algorithm before the CRTC and ask him how this all works. There's too many things that go into it. I wish it were different, quite frankly. But I guess we'll see. I do support algorithmic transparency, though.
And to that end, and I don't want to really get into it because it would take us a conversation. I think there is a conversation needs to be had in terms of the power of tech giants globally, and how they operate. monopolistic and duopolistic tendencies of these organizations. I think there is that conversation, but that's a conversation for another day. But I want to come back to the question at hand, and going back to that conversation that's happening earlier about the algorithms and spending money to promote content. But maybe you could just give us to talk to us for just a minute about buying advertising versus manipulating the algorithm itself, and how we can differentiate those two on these platforms. If you just want to explain for the committee and for anyone tuning in at home, kind of what we're talking about. We're two different things there.
For sure. So when you're buying advertising as an advertiser, you're actually setting the demographic or the cohort that you want your content to be identified by, right? You're targeting that audience. When something's happening naturally in the algorithm is deciding who that cohort is based on likes and wants and other personalities that they've built, same personalities that they've built for maximum sharing, maximum watching. I mean, these platforms want revenue. They want people on the platforms the most time as possible. So they want to give you the most engaging content.
No, I appreciate that. And again, going back to the question I had from the first round about Section 4.2 and the concept of direct versus indirect revenue that someone might benefit from. I am sure organizations you work with, stakeholders that I've had conversations with, are really perplexed by the idea of direct versus indirect revenue, implying that in one way or another, almost anything could be seen to have an indirect revenue function. If you just want to give us a few thoughts on your opinions on that aspect of it.
So at its base revenue, I mean, indirect revenue can mean anything from merch sales to concert tickets to selling your online course, whatever it is. Indirect revenue can literally be anything. But more importantly, just because a creator is not monetizing a piece of content does not mean that content is not being monetized. On a lot of platforms, ads are run on content regardless of the creator monetizing them. So that content is by its nature getting direct or indirect revenue. It's literally everything on YouTube has direct or indirect revenue.
Appreciate that. I want to step away for just a minute from you, Mr. Benzie, and go to some of our other witnesses. We've heard some conversations earlier in this committee and other about the definition of Canadian content and some of the challenges that certain entities have had with the definition and the influence of or the assumption of ownership of intellectual property. I want to maybe turn to Mr. Sonoda and maybe Ms. Noble from ACTRA as well to get your opinion on the definition of Canadian content and what we may hope to see or expect to see in a ministerial directive to the CRTC on revising what Canadian content may or may not be post C11.
Nice question, but I think we have 10 seconds. So if the answer can be done in 10 seconds, John, that would be great.
We have a working CanCon definition, and it's flexible. It's 10 to 10 for Canadian content and 6 out of 10 for service production, and it's working. If it wants to be revisited, we'll do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sonoda.
See, Madam Chair, that was an answer in 10 seconds. It is possible.
I'm a director.
All right, I know that. I get that. Okay. So we're going to go to one more round, and it's going to be Mr. Waugh for the Conservatives. 5 minutes, Kevin.
Madam Chair, if we could just skip Mr. Waugh for now. He's apparently on his way physically to the room. He was online, now he's coming here physical. So we'll
all right, then maybe you can go again, Mr. Nader?
No. Well, I'll save my spot. But Mr. Diddle is eager to go.
Okay. Point of order,
right,
Madam Chair. Point
yes,
of order. I know that we have terrific witnesses. We've done a couple of rounds, but we're extending into the evening now, and there are a number of us that have other obligations. So I'm suggesting
because we have the room till 6:30, so we could go one round. But I get a sense from the other members of the committee if you wish to go one more round? Those opposing the one more round?
I would oppose simply because I have another obligation that starts in 2 minutes.
Yes, Mr. But anybody else? I'm not hearing anything, so obviously we're going to go another round. Chair Clerk, is there anyone opposing other than Mr. Julian?
Yeah.
No, just Mr. Julian?
Madam Chair, I believe the table is conferring.
If you have to go, I think it's
Well, let's suspend while the table confers, which is eating up time. So
I think we do have a consensus.
Biddle initials. There is consensus. Perhaps a consensus may be we go on autopilot for the next next round, so that no motions or any trickery of any kind is engaged with. But we did have 2 hours, and we do have some more questions for the witnesses.
well, then I think. Do you want to? So,
Madame la Présidente.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
On division.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Martin.
Je veux simplement ajouter peut-être.
I would simply add my opinion. Even though I would be in favor of continuing to hear more from our witnesses, I think that in order to be respectful of another party with only one MP, just like us at the BQ, I think it would be uncouth to continue. I would expect the same courtesy if it was me who had to leave, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shampoo. So I guess that since that would remove quorum, would it, Clerk? There would be two political parties, well, one political party not here, but I'm not hearing from the Conservatives.
We're still suspended, Madam Chair. Did you want to resume the meeting, or did you?
Yes, I'll resume the meeting. I don't think it was suspended at all. Everyone was talking to me. So, look, can we go around the table, please, Clerk? On division, let's get a sense. Quickly. We're running out of time.
Point of order, it's Chris. I think there's consensus that I go for 5 minutes and then we'll end the meeting.
Oh, is everyone in agreement? Do I hear opposition to that?
Tout le monde est d'accord, Madame la Présidente.
Everyone agrees, Madam Chair.
Is there to be any opposition, Madam Chair?
Mr. Shampoo, are you saying something?
Je disais que nous.
I was saying that we are all comfortable with that proposal.
Tous à l'aise avec la proposition, Madame la Présidente.
Well, Mr. Biddle for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Benzie, I'll do my best, Mr. Julian, to make it good.
I'm with you on that one.
Mr. Benzie, when you appeared before our committee a little while ago, a couple months ago, you were asked if you had received any money from tech companies, and you denied that allegation. But today, when you appeared, you said that we received some funding from our industry partners, including platforms and private industry involved in the success of digital creators. So was that statement untrue when you testified before us the first time, Mr. Benzie?
I would have to go back and look at the Artis Act statement, but I don't believe I said that.
I'm looking at the transcript in terms of your testimony before. I asked you, you've not received any funding from tech companies in regards to this organization, and you pushed back at me and said it was volunteer, that you're sinking your own money into it. That's verbatim. And today you came and testified we received some funding from our industry partners, including platforms and private industry involved in success of digital creators. Wow. Which one is it?
I'm just waiting for you to pause so I can answer the question. There's a really bad echo.
Please turn off your mics on the floor. Thank you. Mr. Benzie?
I have had conversations with your department, with the Minister's department, with Heritage, and been very open about the fact that we again, the echo, we received some funding from our platform partners. I don't think I said we didn't in my question. I did say that it's mostly volunteer. 80% of the revenue into Digital First Canada comes from Buffer Festival, which is our money.
So who are you receiving, which tech companies are you receiving money from?
YouTube and TikTok.
So this is really shocking to me. This is almost like starting a union but taking money from management. This is an extreme conflict of interest. You're on one hand saying that you represent the best interests of individuals, but you're taking money from the organizations. And we've heard from witnesses that 3/4 of Canadians who are eligible to receive money from these platforms receive $0, but yet you're taking money for a status quo. How is this not an extreme conflict of interest? And I guess back to my original point, were you lying to this committee when you first appeared?
Whoa. Are we good?
Now, Mr. Benzie, we know that is people muting their mics, so
okay.
Go ahead.
I don't see how it's any different. We take no government funding, and everybody here in support of the bill is deeply invested in government funding and supporting the government's bill. I don't see how it's any different.
Mr. Benzie, you're now a registered lobbyist. Have you informed the lobbying commissioner that you're taking money from TikTok and Facebook, or excuse me, TikTok and YouTube, when on one hand claiming to represent digital first creators?
I've filled out all my lobbying stuff as best I could.
When you filled it out, did you inform the lobbying commissioner that you represent or are taking money from American tech companies? And I guess American and Chinese tech companies?
I actually don't remember, to be honest. I'm being very honest, I don't remember.
So based on that, and we talked about it last time you were here, that in all of your social media and all of your advocacy, you are pretty much just an anti-C10, anti-C11. You don't advocate for better working conditions. And you're taking money from tech giants. Why should we listen to anything that you have to say, especially in light of the fact that the vast majority of Canadians on these platforms are making $0, and 60% of those who are eligible are making less than $10,000, which is far less than traditional artists. You're representing a system that...
I want to make sure I have an answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Time to speak. So I appreciate you checking out our social media, and I look forward to the government support of Digital First Canada's Road to Freedom, where we're going into Indigenous communities to help Indigenous youth. To that point, creative output is not an issue. There are tons of people creating online for many different reasons. Some of it is monetary, some of it is not. I look forward to the government's position on what kind of programs we can put in place to help digital first creators. And I look forward to you actually addressing the issues that I've brought up with the bill. You seem to have a lot of issues.
Well, Mr. Benzie, it's hard to address the issues when you're coming here to represent digital first creators, but yet you're taking money from TikTok and YouTube, where TikTok doesn't even pay its artists anything. We acknowledge, everyone here around this table acknowledges that digital first creators are artists, and part of this
19 seconds.
Well, I'll just finish my point then, Mr. Benzie.
If I can,
no, Mr. Benzie, this is my time. You're taking money from a company that is paying its artists $0. That is a foreign-owned. That is a foreign-owned company that is paying Canadians $0. This is my time, Mr. Benzie. I
think they should pay their artists.
They should pay their artists. Then why are you taking money from them? Why are you taking money from them and representing these and taking money from these companies at the same time?
Sorry, I'm not taking money from creators at all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Benzie. This is not a debate. Now, Mr. Biddle, if you finish your sentence, I think we would have ended this meeting, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll just move the motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biddle. Meeting is now adjourned. And thank you, witnesses, for coming in and giving us your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you very much.